Boo. See, that feeling that you just felt right there after I hit you with that devastating jump scare is what can be called in layman's terms horror. Horror is defined as a feeling of great shock, fear, and or disgust. And a video game is defined as a game that is playable by electronically manipulating images on a screen. So in this video, I'm going to manipulate some shockingly disgusting images and rate each one based on how fearful they make me. In other words, read the title. And go check out the first video I made in this series. This is episode 2. I'm not very good at doing transitions. The Evil Within, or as it should be called, Reverse Nightmare on Elm Street, is a creation of the director Shinji Mikami, the man who was the lead director for both Resident Evil 1 and 4, and made a couple other games as well. So if you're wondering if this game feels the least bit like a Resident Evil game, the answer is no. It feels the most bit like a Resident Evil game. In fact, if he slapped Leon's face on this, gave it an inventory management system, and called it the Resident Evil Within, I'm 100% certain this man would have gotten away with it. In this game, you play as hard-boiled detective Sebastian the Hispanic Hammer Castellanos, a generic video game tough guy protagonist. But look, this game came out in 2014, we just got out of the 7th generation of consoles. A generic tough guy protagonist was still a shit back then. Anyways, this game starts with you and your detective buddies in a car driving towards a mental hospital. The mental hospital had just sent out a distress call, and once you get there, you immediately realize upon entering that somebody might have died. You find a doctor who isn't dead though, and you take a look at the security footage to catch a glimpse of the main antagonist of this here game, Ruvik, the edgelord. I don't know his last name. This man eviscerates these guards and then hits you with the
お前はもう死んでいる.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
You wake up hanging upside down, captured by one of the monsters in this game known as the Sadist. And from this point forward, shit just kinda happens. Why is the city absolutely demolished? Where the hell am I? Where am I going? Where did my detective pals go? Jesus Christ, what the hell is that thing? All excellent questions, and most of them might probably get answered maybe. This game takes place over 15 chapters, taking you to a variety of your typical horror game locations like a spooky factory, or a spooky mansion, or a spooky village, or a spooky mental hospital. Oh, would you look at that, I'm only one square off of bingo. Over the course of this game, we learn more about the characters, and we come to understand why they're in this weird-ass, topsy-turvy world. There are 6 main characters here, and each one of them is less memorable than the last one. Probably the biggest weakness of this game in my opinion. Of course, we already mentioned Sebastian, the blandest detective in the world. There's also his 2 pals, Joseph and Junior Detective Kidman, who feel like they're trying to compete with Sebastian to see who could be the most uninteresting character in this game. Of course, we also have Marcelo Jimenez, who plays the classic role of unethical doctor. Always gotta have one of those. And there's also one of his patients, Leslie, who is mentally ill and repeats everything he says. Everything he says. Everything he says. Everything he says, and if you think that's going to get annoying, it kind of does, but despite this, he's probably the most interesting character in this game, although that isn't saying much. And then finally, once again, there's our main antagonist, Ruvik, who seems like he was supposed to be this sort of like menacing figure, but kind of comes across as just what an edgy 14-year-old thinks is a cool villain. The equivalent of somebody's Sonic OC here.
I know what you crave, what you fear. Will you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm going to make you do? Poor little Joseph couldn't. Too bad they dragged you into this. But either way, you're mine. To do with as I please.
That also sounded somewhat sexual. Everything I just mentioned here is pretty much all you'll know about the story until about the end of Chapter 8, which is a little more than halfway through the game. Chapters 1 through 7 are pretty much you running around trying to find your buddies who you will inevitably find and inevitably get split up with again because, horror games, am I right? But it is in Chapter 8 that we figure out we're actually part of some science experiment that's being conducted by Ruvik, which ended up linking the minds of all of the characters into a dream world controlled by Ruvik himself. And if you're wondering why his dream world is full of toxic, unbridled hatred that manifests itself in the form of disgusting monsters, well, it's because he plays League of Legends. As for the gameplay, let's imagine Resident Evil for a second. Did I leave the oven on? This game is a third-person survival horror game that has you utilizing an arsenal of weapons comprised of, but not limited to, shotguns, explosives, and matches that are almost as flammable as a California forest. And the game pits you against these zombie-like enemies. Yeah, I really don't know if these things are zombies. All I know is they seem to have a taste for human brains, so that's good enough.
Bingo, bitch!
Oh, we got a bingo in the house,
bingo. Let's go,
come on, bingo,
baby,
come
come
on.
let's get it.
As I was saying, as well as these guys, there's also a variety of encounters with bosses and mini-bosses. There's of course the sadist, a big-ass dude with a chainsaw, whom I briefly mentioned earlier. He appears in a couple of sections in the game, and appears in one part that felt so familiar to that village section of Resident Evil 4, I almost forgot what game I was playing for a second. There's also this creepy-ass spider lady who runs at you faster than you can say, why am I strangely aroused by this situation? And it's probably a large reason why only 37% of people made it past Chapter 4. There's also one of my favorites, the Keeper, a large man with a safe for a head who is pretty much impossible to kill, and also pretty close to getting a copyright violation from Konami. And there's also a couple of other large malformations that will end up repeatedly killing you throughout the game. If there's one thing the Evil Within excelled at, in my opinion, it was the boss fights. Scrambling around while being pursued by these horrifying looking enemies that in most cases will one-tap you is probably the peak of the horror for this game. And getting viciously killed is another thing I want to touch on actually, because this game is pretty difficult. I mean, never enough for it to really be frustrating, but you'll die. A lot. And this isn't your average type of dying either, so you see this shit right here is super death. You get eviscerated. I played the game on the normal difficulty setting, which was the highest difficulty setting available at the start of the game. And despite the fact that this is the normal difficulty setting, I racked up about 45 deaths at the end of my playthrough and was steady taking L's the whole time. You're kidding me, right? And also, no matter what difficulty setting you play on, there are a handful of enemies that can and will instantly kill you. So yeah, I don't just suck dick, you're actually supposed to die. What I would really love is a single syringe. Who are you, pussy? But, of course, there are two higher difficulty settings you can unlock after beating the game. The first is called Nightmare Mode, which makes all the enemies smarter, stronger, and more durable. But even worse than that, there's another difficulty setting called Akumu, which is the same as Nightmare, but in Japanese, so you know this shit is some hot AIDS. If you take even one stray hit on this mode, you die. If an enemy even looks at you the wrong way, there's a 100% chance you're about to be as dead as all of the hopes and dreams I once held as a child. But it isn't all death, because again, like Resident Evil, there are safe rooms where you can save and upgrade your character. After fighting through hordes of enemies and swimming in pools of blood, hearing that safe room music in the distance always brought a little tear to my eye. A rendition of the classic piece Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy. An unfortunate name, but it's a good song. Also, you may have noticed these black bars. See, this is what the game calls letterbox mode. Now, this is the default mode, and I know some people might be opposed to having only half of their screen utilized for the sake of feeling cinematic. In fact, so many people were opposed to this that they complained and they patched in an option for you to change it. Why didn't I change it? Because I'm an idiot, and I care about the developer's original vision. So I played the entire game like this. And if you ask if it was worth it, If I had to graph my level of fun while playing this game, it would probably look something like this. If there's one thing this game is consistent at, it's being inconsistent. Not just in terms of fun, but in terms of horror as well. Some of these chapters were straight knockouts, and some of these chapters I would rather be knocked out. For example, there was a chapter that began with you exploring this spooky mansion with a chance of the big bad Ruvik spawning to ruin your day, and ended with an amazing section that delved further into the broken mind of this here edgy man. This section genuinely had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. It was so enjoyable. But then only 2 chapters later, the game decides, we don't need horror, we don't need fun. Why don't you fight a billion of these zombies? And now the zombies have guns. Look, dude, I'm not here to play Call of Duty. Whose idea was it to give the zombies assault rifles? In terms of scares, I'd give The Evil Within a solid 5 out of 10. And overall, I'd rate it a solid 6 out of 10. There is so much to love here, but there's also enough mediocre shit to weigh the game down as well. I'm definitely gonna play The Evil Within 2 eventually, so hopefully they learned from this one and made that one a banger. Observer System Redux, also known as Do Androids Dream of Electric Homicide, is a cyberpunk detective story that also moonlights as a psychological horror game in its spare time. Cyberpunk and horror is a pairing that I don't think I've ever personally seen in a video game. I mean, the closest thing I could think of was System Shock. Or maybe Cyberpunk 2077 release day, am I right, fellas? Ooh. Okay. Anyways, in this game you play as Daniel Larzinski, who is voice acted by the legendary cyberpunk actor Rutger Hauer, may he rest in peace. And in this game, Rutger Hauer sounds like what can only be described as a robot gargling marbles.
Yeah, I got it. Backwards and forwards. Thanks.
And I say that in the nicest way possible, because his voice truly does fit the aesthetic of this game. And this game is aesthetic. Whoa, 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 put that thing away! Jesus Christ, what the hell happened in here? See, because that was the first thing that stood out to me. It was the, no, it wasn't the toilet, it was the graphics. The graphics stood out to me. This has some of the best graphics I've seen, not just for horror games, but for games in general. And you know, I could give this whole long spiel about how good these graphics are, but I'd rather talk about what this game is actually about. As I mentioned, you play as Dan Larzinski, a detective. This game being set in Poland in the year 2084, a cyberpunk dystopia filled with all the classic cyberpunk tropes, you know, megacorporations, drug use, poverty, hepatitis A through E, you get the picture. But this isn't a story of sexually transmitted diseases, no. Rather, this is the story of a father and a son, because see, at the beginning of the game you get a call from Adam, your estranged son, and he proceeds to give you one of the most cryptic bullshit spiels I've ever heard in my life. But the call was just long enough for you to pinpoint his location. An apartment building that at first glance seems like a pretty nice place, you know, real futuristic, and it's got this funny little robot guy who cleans stuff. Oh, Jesus Christ, Polish man. This is Janice, the owner of the building, and after a bit of questioning, you deduce that Adam is in apartment number 7. We make our way through the neon-drenched hallways of this apartment complex. We find apartment number 7, and when we walk in, we find Adam and... oh, shit. No, roll it back. Look, that might not even be Adam. For all we know, this could be popular stand-up comedian Jerry Seinfeld. Let's look around the apartment for some clues. And clues we do find, because after searching for a bit, we find a call log from Adam's phone tracing his last call back to a Helena Novak. Also, for some reason, a lockdown has been triggered in the apartment complex, and all of the fancy holograms that made this building not look like a piece of shit are gone. Anyways, we make our way back to the now empty front office desk to check the tenant book, and oh my god. Polish man again, 2 times, you gotta be kidding me. We find out that Helen is staying in apartment 104, so we get there and... shit. No, okay, obviously there's some sort of serial killer on the loose. We're a detective here, let's put 2 and 2 together, come on. So Dan figures that the best thing to do now would be to Scooby-Doo this situation and find the guy who is killing people in this apartment complex. And maybe along the way we'll find out that Adam is actually alive. Wink, wink. But the murders aren't the only interesting thing going on in this apartment complex. In fact, it might be one of the least interesting things. Because there are a variety of side missions that have you exploring this shithole of an apartment complex, and each one has to do with some, interesting characters, to say the least. The gameplay has our man Dan filling in the role of Batman, doing all the things Batman would do. Besides fighting, driving, stopping villains, beating up bad guys, acrobatics, having boatloads of cash, being super ripped, and generally saving the world. So what are we left with? You know, Dan's a detective, and so he has detective vision. If you've never played a Batman game, detective vision is a little thing where you press a button and your screen goes whoosh, and then you could see things in the environment that you shouldn't be able to see. In this game, it comes in 2 forms, one that can inspect electrical objects and one that can inspect biological objects. But where Dan gets the upper hand on Batman is in his special ability. See, Dan is not just a detective, he's an observer. A futuristic detective that has the ability to hack into people's minds to see their memories. And there is no private browsing mode in your brain. That being said, if you're playing this game hoping to do any sort of real detective work or critical thinking, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Because this game is what we in the business refer to as a walking simulator. Yeah, there's maybe like 2 stealth sections in the game, but other than that, the gameplay here is just a bunch of walking. Anyways, before I go on any further, I feel like I need to mention the real game here though. With fire and sword spiders. See, this is a puzzle minigame that you could play on the various computers around the game that has you trying to save a princess at the end of a level, and you do that by collecting all of these coins and outmaneuvering the spiders. A simple concept, but this minigame had me enthralled. Every time I came across a new computer in the game, I got so excited because I got to play a new level of this shit. Honestly, I might have enjoyed this little minigame more than I enjoyed the actual game. But you know, Bloober Team, if you decide to stop making horror games, you guys are sitting on a goddamn gold mine here. Anyways, horror. Right, we're still doing horror. Would it be weird to say that the biggest scares I got from this game were from a sex doll and a pigeon? Oh, okay, yeah. The pigeon jump scare? The horror in this game was the equivalent of getting head from a 45-year-old Polish man, right? Because see, you have everything, you know, this wonderful atmosphere, setting, sound design that edges you along, everything feels good, and it makes you think that some real scary shit is gonna happen. But then you open your eyes and see that you're in fact getting head from a 45-year-old Polish man. Needless to say, there is no climax. I mean, even what I think was supposedly the scariest sections of the game were these sections where you used your observer mind reading powers. I mean, the catch here being that you used your powers on dead people, which, according to the observer system Redux lore, creates twisted, distorted versions of these people's memories, which, in turn, should mean that this is the scary part of the game. But what it actually means is loud noises and glitchy graphics. Maybe I am being a little too harsh on the horror of this game because there were scary elements and it felt like it was on the verge of being frightening. It just feels like it never fully committed. And you know, really, putting aside all the main story stuff, the side missions honestly felt like they were the strongest portions of the game. You know, here we got a glimpse of the more crazy, messed up shit that we could see in a cyberpunk horror game. Unfortunately, all the side missions here also felt half-baked and somewhat unfinished, despite them being pretty much more interesting than the main story to me. And of course, in a side mission, we got the one thing in this game that genuinely got me. Me no likey this room. Me no likey this room. This room. Oh my fucking god, you son of a fucking bitch! Goddamn sex robots. In terms of scares, I would give Observer System Redux a 3 out of 10. And overall, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 10. I mean, there was so much potential. I'm telling you, so much potential here, but man. Bloober Team, you know what must be done. Detention, or what it should be called, Spooky School Simulator, is a 2D horror game. Would you look at that? 2 whole dimensions. That's 1 more than 1 and 2 less than 4. And you know, you don't see a lot of 2D horror games. I guess developers realized that putting jump scares in the game without the 3rd dimension just doesn't work as well. Oh my god. This game is set in 1960s Taiwan in the midst of the White Terror. For all the idiots out there who aren't read up on 20th century Taiwanese history, the White Terror was a period in history stretching from about the end of World War II to 1987, in which the Chinese National Party placed Taiwan under martial law, enforcing strict political censorship and allowing persecution of anyone suspected of anti-state activities. Now I know tensions between Taiwan and China are still a bit iffy and I ain't trying to get too political in here, but that's all I'm saying. Alright, we got that out of the way, let's talk about the game. It was a dark and stormy night, the prelude to a typhoon. High school student Wei Chung-tin got caught in the midst of lacking. Waking up in a now empty classroom, making his way through the now empty halls, he finds himself in a now almost empty auditorium. There's a sleeping girl on the center of the stage. A partial amnesiac, but the who and the what of this situation aren't important, it's the when and the where, because these two need to get out of here now lest they get caught in the brewing tropical storm. The two then make their way down to the only bridge off the island. But to their dismay, the bridge seems to have been toppled over by a Kool-Aid river. Fruit punch. Returning to the school with plans to wait out the incoming storm, Wei Chung-tin and Fang Rei Shin decide that they need to gather some supplies from around the school to make it through the night. Wei says he'll first go try to contact someone with the phone in the principal's office, but ends up getting a little more than he bargained for. He's dead. And now player control has been shifted. Now following Rei, we go on a journey of self-exploration. Not in that way.
What do you mean by that?
To recall Rei's lost memories and conquer the trauma that she dealt with as a result of the people around her and the oppressive regime she was put under, as well as the abuse she had to deal with and the societal pressures around her leading her down a path of anger and depression. And you know, it's kind of tough to transition off of that one, so here's another joke to lighten the mood. The way the story played out was honestly captivating. I mean, the game unfolds itself in a real cryptic and poetic way that never felt too difficult to understand, yet never found a place to bore me, which is a tough balancing act to manage. Do I ask for too much? Is life just a never-ending bitterness? Or is it all just me? Divine answer. Eat shit. Now, nobody's gonna play this game and walk away amazed at the gameplay. I mean, the puzzles, while not being the easiest I've ever seen in a horror game, are also not really gonna stretch that brain muscle too much. And besides the puzzles, the only other real gameplay here are the stealth sections, if you can even call them that. Here, you press a single button to hold your breath. This in turn makes it so that the ghouls and ghosts in this game won't be able to detect you, which allows you to just walk right by them. Now, I wouldn't exactly call this the Metal Gear of horror games, but these are stealth mechanics nonetheless. Honestly, going into this game, I did not expect it to be super scary. And that can 100% be attributed to the fact that this game is in 2D. Like, oh, a spooky drawing. Like, come on, you expect that shit to scare me? I'm a grown-ass man. Yeah, it was pretty scary. Not ever really scary in the shit my pants type of way, but more of an internal dread. You know, something that really eats away at your core and leaves you feeling a bit empty inside. The bleak environments and imagery, combined with the disturbing ways the experiences Ray lived through were portrayed here, really convey the dread of being an abused Taiwanese child trapped into the steel fist of Chinese martial law in the 1960s. But really, I gotta give it up to the sound designers, because they put the horror elements to this game on their back. The music in this game was some of the most soul-crushing shit you could listen to. If you put headphones on a blind person, this shit would make them think they were transported to the fifth circle of hell. And you know, I was always scared of detention as a child, but I never thought it could be this scary. I'm gonna be honest, I've been sitting on that joke since I bought the game. You know, if I'm being real, maybe, you know, like 65% of the reason I even talked about this game was for that joke right there. I give the horror of this game a 5.5 out of 10, and overall I'd give it a 7 out of 10. This game was very good, but it was also over before I knew it. It's far too common for a horror game to overstay its welcome, but I gotta add this one to the pile of games that I felt could have used an extra hour or two. Still definitely think this game is worth checking out. I mean, there are plenty of worse things you could spend $12 on. Soma, or Bioshock if you replace the guns with existential dread, is a horror game that came out in 2015, made by the same people that made Amnesia, and is set in the scariest place on Earth, Canada. I mean the bottom of the ocean. Look, I don't have a problem with Canada. I mean, Canada. In this section of the video, we'll explore topics like, what does it mean to be human? Do we really have free will? What makes you the person that you think you are? Are Canadians even real people? I didn't put this in the script. I swear I didn't put this one in the script. I don't know how this... In this game, you play as protagonist Simon Jarrett. And you know, to me, it seems like a rare thing for a horror game to have a protagonist respond to situations realistically. I feel that all too often, you'll see a horror game protagonist face situations or enemies that would give an average person 2 aneurysms and a stroke, but they act like it's just another Tuesday for them. Simon, on the other hand, responds to all the bullshit he comes across in a way that is almost believable for an actual human being that exists in this mortal plane we call Earth. But the question is, what is the bullshit that he comes across? Simon is a man who made a little bit of an oopsie whoopsie. He got into a car accident, killing his girlfriend and leaving him with the bad case of chronic brain hemorrhaging. So in the hopes of recovery, he is partnered with Dr. David Munchie, who is conducting an experimental procedure that might help him. At the beginning of the game, Simon pays a visit to Mr. Munchie, who puts this helmet on Simon to take a brain scan.
Say cheese. Hello? Mr. Munchie?
I don't think that was just a brain scan. Now trapped in a dark, spooky facility and God knows where, Simon begins exploring, trying to uncover where exactly he is and how he got there. Unfortunately, this facility seems to be lacking any human life, and even more unfortunately, seems to be at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Eventually, he does make contact with a human in this base, who tells him to get to the communications tower at the top of the building he's in. He also comes into contact with somebody who doesn't seem to be quite human.
Are you human?
Shit, did my body give it away? I try hard saying mystery. Yeah, I'm human. Are you?
Listen, I don't want to alarm you, but I think you might be trapped in a robot.
I'm telling you, get your eyes checked. I'm right here. I see both my hands, both my feet. I can't move. Please.
I'm sorry, I think I pulled the wrong lever.
Get me a doctor.
Won't a mechanic make more sense?
This fucking game.
Funny? Give me a minute.
But you're a robot!
Really? The robots have legs, hands, a face. You're delusional.
Okay, calm down. I won't...
Get some fucking help.
You get some fucking help,
Get me out.
dickhead. Who the fuck are you? You know what?
You okay?
Continuing on from that, Simon tiptoes his way past this bipedal machine monster and arrives in the communications tower. He makes contact with the girl that he talked to earlier, Catherine. He tries asking some questions, but before he gets any answers, the communications tower collapses. Now, I hope you don't have thalassophobia, because Simon is about to do some deep-sea exploring. And Simon's about to do some deep-sea Shut the hell up. God, I hate that guy. Look, there's some pretty big twists in this game. Twists that I don't want to spoil, but to properly talk about the game, I feel like I need to. I'm even going to talk about the ending of the game. So if you haven't played this game and you want to, now is the chance to skip to the next part of the video. Simon arrives at the tram station that will take him to Catherine and finds an actual human that seems to be on some sort of Lovecraftian life support. Simon, unintimidated by the Great Ones, decides to pull this life support, killing the only other human that he's met. Simon hops on the tram, which immediately gets derailed, forcing him to do another bit of impromptu deep sea diving. Simon then arrives at the building where Catherine is and finally gets to meet her face to face. Or well, face to face on the monitor of a computer. And this is where the bombshells start getting dropped on our boy Simon over here. See, all of the humans on this base, dead. Wiped out by a super AI known as the WoW. All of the humans on Earth, dead. Wiped out by an asteroid, making Simon Jarrett the only actual human alive. Well, sort of. Because, see, Catherine and all of the other talking robots that Simon met here were actually also all humans at one point. And the Catherine she is now is actually a brain scan that was uploaded to the storage unit of a robot. And at this point, you might have already caught on, but Simon is also a brain scan in a robot. Diving suit. He's in a robot diving suit. And it's 100 years in the future. Catherine explains that all this brain scan mumbo-jumbo was actually part of a last-ditch effort to preserve humanity after the world was destroyed by an asteroid, and that humanity's last chance was to upload brain scans of the inhabitants of this underwater facility to a ship called the Ark, and then shoot that ship into space. The brain scans would then live in a virtually simulated utopia, thus preserving the last remnants of humankind. But they failed to send out the Ark because of the WoW. It turned rogue, you know. Big surprise, right? A super AI turning rogue. Didn't see that one coming. So now Simon and Catherine embark on a journey to find the Ark that is still somewhere in this facility, upload their consciousness to it, and send it out into space. But along the way, they will be hindered by WoW-controlled monsters, faulty engineering, and of course, Simon's own crippling realization that he is just a copy of the person that once was Simon Jarrett. I mean, is he really even himself? Has he lost his humanity? What does it mean to be a human? What defined the man that was Simon Jarrett? Even if he shares all of the memories of the old Simon, is that who he still is? Is his life actually now better that he's no longer in the body of a Canadian? So the gameplay here has Simon moving from location to location, sneaking past these WoW-controlled monsters, and you know, these parts were pretty scary, you know, until I realized that the enemies look stupid as hell. Like, look at this. What is this? This is like a potato on legs. Am I supposed to be scared by this? This thing can't even see. And this is just a dude in a dirty diving suit. I'm playing as a dude in a dirty diving suit. Come on. The guy in the SpongeBob movie was scarier than this. What am I playing? What am I playing here? Is this Horizon Zero Dawn? Come on, man. You got to do better than that. But after beating the game and coming back to it, I actually realized that these guys are, they're kind of scary, actually. The problem lies with the fact that the game is so dark, I couldn't even see them properly. Like, I had to look up actual high-quality pictures online to appreciate how grotesque these things are. And yeah, alright, some of these sneaking sections did get me a little bit, you know? Just the atmosphere of this game alone was enough to have me on my toes. Dark corridors littered with tendrils and corruption that was spread by the WoW. The creaking of the metal interiors under the pressure of the ocean. Devoid of anything familiar and filled to the brim with these creatures that have human consciousness planted inside of them, now having lost their sanity. But it wasn't the indoor sections of the game that had me the most nervous. It was the ocean exploration sections at the end of the game. See, the final few buildings you need to get to are at the very bottom of the ocean. I'm talking, you know, the Midnight Zone, Rock Bottom, And I mentioned deadassophobia once, but really, if you're someone who's scared of the deep, this section will probably make you put the game away for good. Oh my fucking god. But, to be honest, that wasn't the scariest part of the game. The scariest part of this game was the internal battle of Simon coming to grips with his humanity, or what he might now call a lack thereof. This game is constantly confronting the player with this overarching theme of what it means to be human and alive. You might have laughed at this robot earlier. I mean, you know, silly, stupid robot, you think you're a human? You dumb idiot. You stupid, stupid robot idiot. Well, the game wants us to question that. When you're hearing this robot scream out in pain, you laugh. I mean, it's just a copy of a person, right? It's all digital. But that copy can feel, that copy can think for itself. I disassociated that copy from being an actual human and laughed at its pain, only for the game to confront me with the question of my own morality by revealing that the character that we are controlling is also just another copy. There's a moment in the game where the main character switches bodies yet again in order to further progress. We copy our consciousness into another diving suit, but unlike the first time we switched bodies at the very beginning of the game, here we see the body that was left behind. And we realize that this isn't just a body. The consciousness that we were playing as for the first half of the game is in there. Would you be comfortable if you knew there was another version of you out there suffering? Is that person even really you? And are you even really the person that you think you are? It all hits you even harder at the very end of the game. See, we find the Ark and successfully send it out, having uploaded our consciousness to it. But then that's it. It leaves. Our mission is successful. Why are we still here? The first 2 times we switched bodies, it was almost like we were teleported. But this time, no switch. This time, the game is showing you what it feels like to be the one left behind. There's a dark hole forming in your chest as you finally understand and come to grips with what has been happening throughout the entire game. But despite your now hopeless situation, can you be happy with yourself? Knowing there's another version of you out there enjoying the fruits of the sacrifice that you had to make. Can you be happy with yourself knowing that you've effectively brought another Canadian into this world?
Hey.
Hey, so look, I kind of got myself into a little bit of a predicament here. See, I made a couple of what could be perceived as off-color Canadian jokes in my video. You know, like nothing too offensive, just stuff like Canadians aren't real people. Anyways, point being, seeing as how you're a Canadian and also my best friend in the whole world, I figure, you know, you could let the people know that I don't hate Canadians.
Right. No.
Come on, man. I mean, you gonna leave me hanging like that?
Yeah, I think I will.
Oh, okay. All right. No, you think you will. No, that's cool. I just hope next time, you know, you give me some advance warning before you decide to fuck me.
You know what? How about you go shove a hockey stick up your ass?
You people are all the same, aren't you?
You people?
Yeah, you people, you maple
What do you mean
syrup
by
loving.
that?
You, I know. Originally, I was going to give the horror for this game a 5 out of 10 because I was basing it on the terrors that happened in the game. But the more you think about Soma and the actions you have taken as a player and the questions the game poses, you realize that the true horror isn't in the 99-cent scares you see on the screen that you're going to forget about in a couple of days. The true horror lies in the fact that this game makes you question your own existence in the real world. 8.5 out of 10. 8 out of 10 overall. Some of the sneaking sections are just okay. Alien Isolation, also known as Alien, a licensed horror game that doesn't suck balls, is a game set in the world of the famous 1979 Ridley Scott movie Alien, and is actually a canon sequel to the original movie. If you haven't seen the original movie or don't remember what happens in it, let me give you a quick summary. Hello, my name is Ellen Ripley, and along with the people next to me, we make up the crew of the Nostromo. This is the sound a spaceship makes. We're in space right now. Currently, we're headed back to Earth to deliver some mineral stuff. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie as well. What is going on over there? I was actually just leaving. Ooh. Thank God I made it out of there alive. Oh shit. Bing. Oh no, I'm a xenomorph and I'm slowly floating away into the cold reaches of space. Oh no, God, please help me. I'm gonna die. Oh no. Well, time to go to sleep for 57 years. In this game, you play as Ellen Ripley's daughter, Amanda Ripley. And the setup for this game is pretty damn simple. Amanda wants to know what happened to her mother, and a recording from the ship her mother was on was recovered and is now in Sevastopol Station, a large space station that is used as a hub for commerce and business related things, space business related things. So Amanda and a crew of people who will definitely not be dead by the end of this game take a trip to Sevastopol. However, when they get to the station, they get no response from anyone inside, which is probably a pretty good sign that they shouldn't go in there. And what are you three guys doing? Are you even listening to me? What the hell did I just say? The three of them take a little spacewalk over to the station, and they fucked it. Okay. Amanda, now by herself, makes her way into the station to see that things are not exactly going well for the people on board. And far be it for me to spoil the big twist of this game, but there might be an alien killing people on this ship. But hey, don't take my word for it. I mean, you can even ask that guy. Now Amanda's objective has been shifted from learn about my missing mother to the much more important objective of don't get gored by the 7-foot-tall alien monster. Though, it isn't only the xenomorph you have to worry about, because the other inhabitants of this ship are also a threat. Humans, doing what we do best in times of great distress, try and kill each other. Then of course there are also the androids, synthetics as they call them, who have been locked into a kill on sight mode, which is very convenient for us. Even more convenient is the fact that everything that can go wrong on this ship will go wrong. Every door you need to get past will either be busted or locked in some type of way. Every generator is down. If there is something that can block Amanda from progressing, it will. And to be honest, with the amount of shit that goes wrong on this ship, I'm surprised it even made it to outer space to begin with. But anyways, you know, Amanda isn't actually alone on this ship, because instead of killing you on sight, some of the survivors on this ship will actually try to help you. Or, well, you'll help them, because this is a horror game and you have to do everything by yourself.
Ricardo, get a lock on our radio so we can stay in touch.
Oh, yeah, so I'm going alone again. Yeah, that's cool, bro. Why don't I shoot you in the face? How about that? I didn't think it would let me do that. Tasked with the mission of surviving, how does Amanda accomplish this? Well, she can run, she can hide, and she can shoot things. You're probably going to be running and hiding for most of the game, though. And you know, I'm not a big fan of first-person stealth. It always feels a little janky to me, but I will say that this game is one of the rare few games that did first-person stealth right, and that is due to two mechanics. This lean mechanic, which allows you to not only peek around corners, but over obstacles. And this heartbeat sensor, which is pretty self-explanatory, but really eliminates some of that tedium of not knowing where your enemies are. Yet it never felt overpowered. More so, it felt necessary, because I played this game on the recommended difficulty, which was the hard setting. And there was this sneaking section at the very beginning of the game, before you had even encountered the alien, before any real horror had happened, and of course, before you had this shit. Just a normal-ass sneaking section against some normal-ass human survivors. And let me tell you, I would rather get killed by a xenomorph in real life than ever have to do this shit again. Oh my good god. Oh my god, you're kidding me. Oh my god. I've been on this part for like 30 minutes. I haven't even been scared once. The only feeling I have felt in this game is anger. But how was the horror of this game? Well, let's break it down here. I'm gonna put this out there, okay? Xenomorphs are not scary. Maybe I've been desensitized to these things from the sheer amount of exposure I've had to them over the years. But at this point, to me, these things are like cute little dogs that will murder you in cold blood and eat your corpse. But you know, it's like a cute murder. It's quirky. Cute, quirky. I don't fucking know, dude. And on top of that, this ship isn't a very scary environment to begin with. I mean, visually, this game is stunning. It came out in 2014 and looks better than a lot of games that are coming out today. I feel like I can attribute that to the lighting system, despite the fact that there are enough lens flares in this game to put J.J. Abrams to shame. But the setting itself, I mean, space is scary, but this space station is not. Picturesque as it may be, besides one or two small sections, the atmosphere of this game alone didn't do much to enhance the horror for me. So, I find neither the enemy nor the setting of this game very scary. So what exactly is scary? Well, I may not find the appearance of the xenomorph to be very scary, but the tenacity is a different story. This game employs quite the impressive AI system for the xenomorph that ensures that it will be on you at all times. He does not give you a break. In the sections where the xenomorph is actually hunting you, the tension will be at 11 the whole time. This man is going to be riding your ass constantly, just pushing, riding it. And just when you think he's going to stop riding your ass, there he is again riding your ass. Like you could have replaced the xenomorph with anything and this shit would have still gotten me anxious. And on top of the constant riding, the xenomorph will throughout the game adapt to the tactics that you commonly use. For example, I was a big fan of hiding under desks, and Buddy over here caught on. This game also utilizes an interesting mechanic of picking up on the noises you make into your microphone. What this brilliant feature does is make it so that every small noise in your household will get you killed. Or in my case, it allowed me to get myself killed because I couldn't resist the temptation of talking shit. Baby dick. Small cock. You idiot. But the non-xenomorph sections left a bit to be desired. As much fun as it may seem sneaking or shooting around these bald-headed bitches or the other survivors no, actually rescind that statement. It doesn't seem too fun. Especially with the sheer amount of encounters they crammed into the game. I mean, these sections paled in comparison to the stress that gets put on you when trying to avoid this big black dog. The game has Alien in the title, alright? I'm not here to touch tips with Michael Jackson and his band of merry goons. Scare factor, 4 out of 10. Overall, 6.5 out of 10. I'm not a super fan of the Alien series, but it was still cool as hell to see this shit in game. And although there were a few lackluster sections and the game dragged on for a bit longer than it should have, I could still walk away from this saying, yeah. I'm looking forward to that Dead Space remake. Alright, here are all the ratings in one big list for your viewing pleasure. And I guess now I got this sort of running gag of putting a tier list at the end of my video, so here you go. Rap album tier list. Go ahead and cook me in the comments for my poor taste. And you know, I really don't want to do this, but the guys at corporate were saying that, you know, you got to do it. You know, all the other YouTubers are doing it. It's like part of the job at this point. So don't forget to smash that like.